Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more.
Welcome to Compass Points, a podcast about Knox County and Knoxville government, politics, business, education, and just about anything else that grabs our attention. I'm Scott Barker, the editor of Compass, and we're a subscription-based website and newsletter where we report on all these topics and more, and you can find us at CompassKnox.com. I am joined by Compass co-founder and frequent, almost weekly, because he travels, co-host, Jesse Mayshark. Jesse, how's it going?
Going well. I actually traveled just this past week. I took a quick little recreational jaunt up to the very fine city of Chicago, which I always enjoy going to. I did not, while I was there, encounter any federal ICE agents or the various other entities that have been up there enforcing immigration law and or wreaking havoc and terrorizing the population, depending on which perspective you take. But I saw an awful lot of graffiti against ICE. I saw snow, but no ice. Sorry.
I mean, we saw a little snow here, so...
Yeah, there was a little snow here, too.
But we didn't see a lot of ice here either, I guess, if you want to...
Well, I'm glad that was a recreational trip, but a lot of times you're out of town on your other venture, which is the Progressive South.
That's right. And, yes, and I do travel around the South a fair amount. Of course, I'm not. Sadly, I can't claim Chicago as part of the South, no matter how far I try to expand.
You didn't just like go to the South side of Chicago and say,
right,
"Hey,
that's right."
Hey.
It kind of counts.
And the other voice you heard was Lord Seth Barber, our producer extraordinaire. We are in his Barbarian Studios. And Seth, how are you doing this week?
Doing well, my friend. I already got to touch on some of the fun weather we had this week, and that ridiculous cold snap. I mean, that was unnatural for how cold it got for a couple of days there. But
it was unusual. I mean, it's very unusual for early November to be that cold.
Sure was, but it's normalized into the proper, mid-November. It's cool mornings. You might get away with a t-shirt in the afternoon if you're being active, but it's beautiful, sunny, blue skies today.
One thing I really notice is that even when we get these warmer afternoons now, man, as soon as that sun goes down, which is early these days, it just like the temperature just drops immediately.
For sure. And I get to do a meme in football that I get to say balls by 50.
Balls by 50.
Balls by 50. Vegas has it at 40, and I think we can cover that. So anyway,
by the time this comes out, people will already know whether that was accurate or not.
We should start
who are we playing? We're playing New Mexico State.
New Mexico State.
I saw their
now you scoff. That is the school where Diego Pavia, the dynamic quarterback for Vanderbilt, came from. He transferred to Vanderbilt from New Mexico State.
Okay, but he's not still there.
No, but I mean there are times that New Mexico State can be
right.
It's
a place
good.
That can produce players who then leave.
The year before he left, they beat Auburn. I believe it was Auburn. And fun fact, one of their more recent former coaches was from Oak Ridge, Doug Martin. Huh. He was the quarterback at Oak Ridge when I was in high school, and he went to Kentucky, then went into coaching, and he has not been as successful as he would have liked. But he was at New Mexico State, and they did. Well,
there's a legitimate Oak Ridge, New Mexico connection with
national
labs and the Manhattan Project.
There is, and he's working in football, which is a win for anybody for long term, even if you're not in the top echelon of teams and winning.
Sure. I mean, it's something he loves to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The old saw about you do what you love and you don't work a day in your life. I don't know that that's true, but it's pretty close because I love journalism, and some days it feels like work. But Doug, I knew Doug growing up, and he was a really good guy, and he's still in coaching. I don't know exactly where he is now, but he was at New Mexico State pre-Pavia which is why he's no longer at New Mexico State. So, anyway, enough with that. We will be talking. Well, we can go ahead and do it. One of the other things that people are going to know about, well, for the most part, if they don't listen to this till Monday or later, we will know whether one Knoxville SC is the USL League One champion. They play in the championship game.
That's right. Go One Knox.
Yeah, they play in the championship match Sunday night.
I'll have my first match in the new stadium. I'm going to will be this game. We got some tickets and.
Well, you're lucky because I did look last night, and they only have standing room only tickets left.
Yeah, so it'll set a league record, I believe, no matter what happens.
It will. I mean, they set a league record their first home match back in April 26th, I believe it was. But they set a USL league record then, and this crowd will probably exceed 7,000.
Yeah, it's gonna be packed. I'm excited.
Well, they've had a really successful year in the new stadium, regardless of what happens Sunday. But obviously, it would be nice to close out the season with a championship.
Absolutely, yeah. They're undefeated at home.
Yep.
That doesn't mean they're.
They haven't won every game.
They haven't won every game, but they're undefeated. So because
but we're in the playoffs, so there is no the tie is off the table, so we don't have to worry about tying the last game of the year.
There will
be a winner or a loser, and we're hoping that it's us.
That's true. So if you've got tickets, or you manage to finagle standing room only tickets, it's Sunday night at 5. 90 minutes later,
give or take.
90 minutes give or take plus the halftime. So 2 hours after that, we'll know whether One Knox brings home the championship. And you're right, it has been a great year, no matter what, for them. The first year in the stadium, third year as an organization. So, we recently did a piece on them before their game or match last week, their semifinal match, and they are excited about the playoffs and excited about Knoxville, and Knoxville has returned the favor. The Knoxville fan base is pretty good to them. So anyway, we are not a sports publication or sports podcast, so we'll move on to the things we do cover. One of the things we'll talk about is there is a new comprehensive regional climate plan. Yes. Climate change, despite some proclamations from the federal government, still exists, and there's a regional plan to meet it and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we'll talk about it. Another kind of interesting thing that happened late in the week is Seven Islands State Birding Park is going to be expanding thanks to donation from Pete Clausen, the railroad magnate who is a longtime supporter of Seven Islands. He's donating 90 acres of riverfront property.
I think it's remarkable we have a railroad magnate in Knoxville. It feels the very 19th century.
It does. And like the railroad magnates of the 19th century, he's pretty generous with his money. He throws it around. He's they're giving up right of way for the railroad for the greenway from Chapman Highway to Imes Nature Center, and then there's this. 90 acres of riverfront property along the French Broad River, South Bank. I would imagine there are some developers just shaking their heads out there over that. But anyway, there's that, and there is a grant from the state to build a pedestrian bridge across part of the river. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. Also, City Council met this week, and they passed on first reading a provision that will allow people to subdivide duplexes. And we talked about this when it was at Planning Commission earlier this year, and it's now at City Council, passed on first reading, but it was close. Then we'll talk about the juvenile detention facility. Had their oversight committee met met last week, and of course, we also had the resignation of the last week, the weekend prior to last week, of Brian Bivens, who was the interim superintendent, and that's all interrelated with all the problems they've had. We'll discuss those. Also, the city approved providing an extra $100,000 to area food banks through the United Way, which is also going to chip in $100,000 to help with the surge in demand caused by the suspension of SNAP benefits. Got to remember, those are still basically suspended. I mean, there's that, even though they voted to reopen the government, that money hasn't started flowing yet. But we'll start out talking about county government and the county's debt. There was a meeting, their agenda review meeting. I'm sorry, it was the finance committee meeting last Monday, and Larson J., the county commissioner and head of the finance committee, and chief financial officer Chris Caldwell had a presentation about the size of the county debt and what that means, and basically it is bleak. The debt, and we have reported this. Jesse, you reported on this earlier this year, and
I think it was last year.
No, I'm sorry, it was last year.
Yeah, it
was last year. Caldwell kind of raised the alarms, and listen, this is going to be a problem moving forward, and he reiterated that last week, and several county commissioners, including a couple of typically fiscally conservative Republicans, said it was pretty alarming and that something would need to be done. One of the things that you missed this. The county is $761 million in debt, and the debt service payments are $84 million a year, and that's out of a budget of $1.1 billion. But we'll get into why $1.1 billion isn't $1.1 billion for them. But those payments are supposed to balloon from $84 million to $110 million by the 2030-31 fiscal year. So that's a huge increase. The cash reserve, they already don't have enough money to cover the $84 million annual debt increase. They have to go into their debt service cash reserves.
Right, because they have a budgeted debt service fund every year that has been covering their annual payment, but now they're at a point where that designated fund is no longer sufficient.
Right. Well, they've got the designated fund. Within that fund, they have cash reserves that they're supposed to keep back and not spend unless there's an emergency. So they've started dipping into those cash reserves. At the current rate, those cash reserves will be depleted by 2030-31, and money will have to be diverted from other things, libraries, whatever, to cover this, and if nothing else is done, and that's non-negotiable. I mean, in your personal finances, if you come into a financial crunch, you might skip your credit card payment for a month, or make the minimum payment, whatever. In public finance, you've got to pay your debt first. That's the first draw is going to be debt service, and you absolutely have to pay it. And those obligations are going to go up, and they're not going to come back down till 2036. So,
and that's assuming that the county doesn't have to borrow any more money in the interim.
Yeah,
that's
that's
also kind of unlikely.
That is very unlikely. That's assuming there aren't capital improvements. They have a capital improvements plan for 5 years, which goes through 2031. So they already know that this includes that. The items in that plan, but also on the back end of that plan, for instance, the parks line item for capital improvements dwindles to almost nothing, and so if they make any improvements to parks, they'll have to go probably and borrow money to do that. Same thing goes for building anything or doing expansions of any buildings or refurbishing of any buildings. And one of the things that they're talking about doing is building a maintenance facility in Oakwood Lincoln Park. So that's so all these things are there, and the upshot is that and they did actually talk about it, is that at some point in the next few years, sooner rather than later, they are going to have to raise property taxes unless people want to do things like close libraries and close senior centers and I don't know what else they could close down, stop paving roads, those kinds of things, because the school system can't be touched, and that's 2/3 of the budget.
And also, like almost half of their school budget comes from the state. So that's just education money. And that gets to, you were talking about how the $1.1 billion isn't really $1.1 billion, because that's not $1.1 billion in local funding.
Right.
That includes that big chunk of money for schools from the state, which just goes to the school system. And then also sales tax, receipts are dedicated at certain percentages to the school system.
I believe it is 72%.
72% in the city and the county, and the town of Farragut, it's only 50%. But yeah, so there's a big chunk of that budget that's just kind of like locked down. It's not like money that can be transferred from there to other places.
Right. The actual amount of money that they have in general government is small, and we talked about that, but also there's a lot of state money that goes in the court system. The fee offices pay for themselves, so it's not the general fund where most of the money comes from to pay for day-to-day operations is very much constricted. One of the things that they talked about during the meeting was paving, and they're only going to pay. They have got money to pave 45 miles during a year, and the goal to kind of keep up is 180 miles a year. And they actually had a chart that it was kind of strange. It didn't report it in the story I wrote about this, because I didn't know if I wasn't good enough to convey. I'm not a good enough reporter to convey exactly what they meant, but basically, they're over the last 25 years, there are 3,000 miles of deferred maintenance behind. So they should have paved 3,000 miles of road that they haven't paved over the last 25 years because they haven't had
right. And I think they ideally want to be on sort of like a 20 to 25 year paving schedule where everything in the county gets at least touched, and commissioners have said they're on more like an 80-year paving schedule, and that's under the status quo.
Right.
That's like just that's without these new needs to pay the increased debt and everything. If they just maintain, like even maintaining what they're doing now is going to get extremely difficult in the next few years. But what they're doing now is putting them farther and farther behind every year on their actual infrastructure needs.
Yeah, and the and we're not even talking about population growth.
Right.
So, and what they do to roads now that they've done a lot to try to pass that burden on to developers, but basically what that is right outside of the development they put a turn lane in.
Right. Developers are not out there like fixing potholes.
They're not fixing potholes, and they're not widening roads, except maybe right where the entrance to the subdivision is, where they can put in a turn lane. But the roadway to get to that turn lane is still going to be 12 feet wide or whatever, 18 feet, whatever. A lot of the roads in the county are very, very narrow. Now we've talked about this. One of the driving for a lot of people are saying, well, now why are they, why are we having to spend so much money now on debt? Doesn't that mean we were irresponsible in spending in the past? Wasn't necessarily the spending that was irresponsible, but the financing could certainly be questioned. There's a one big example, and this is one of the big drivers, is a general obligation loan that the Ragsdale administration took out in 2007.
Yes. Younger listeners may not remember the old days of the Ragsdale administration.
Yeah, well, those were fun times.
But we are still paying for them in many ways.
Yeah. Now that loan was interest only for most of its life, and this was just a $69 million loan. Now that's not a whole lot, as far as the grand scheme of things goes. But this was $69 million that they took out in 2007, and they now owe $69 million. They've only paid in. They haven't paid any on the principal of this, and now they have to, and they have to go ahead and do it because they can't refinance it. State law limits the length of time that you can have debt on the books, and we're coming up on that in Knox County, and that is one of the biggest driver on the increase in debt service that's going to have to come out, and they can't. Another thing is, people talk about, let's just refinance the debt overall, and one of the get new debt, but at to pay off the old debt, and we'll pay on it for a few more years. There's one big problem with that, and that is interest rates now that they have on their debt, because they've refinanced in the past, and the interest they're paying now is lower than the interest they would pay if they refinanced. It's like if you bought your house, 10 years ago when mortgage rates were lower. Refinancing now is kind of a losing proposition, because you're going to pay a percentage or two higher in interest.
Right, because we went through a period of historically low interest rates, and so everybody refinanced everything at these extremely low rates. The only way we would get close to those rates again is an economic crash, which, if that happens, the county's going to have other problems.
Oh, yeah, there are plenty of other problems. Anyway, all this goes to the point. Terry Hill, who is a Republican commissioner, basically she made it very succinctly, said, this is not a spending problem. This is a revenue problem. And it's about that. And Larson J., who is the head of the finance committee and a candidate for county mayor, basically said, there's, our only options are changing the funding model, which is a euphemism for raising taxes, because since he's running for mayor, he doesn't want to say raising taxes, or we're going to have to make draconian cuts. And by draconian cuts, he means shutting down services services
that in a lot of cases are already pretty strapped,
right,
and that in a lot of cases have not themselves kept pace with the actual growth in county population and demands for services.
Right. And the one county commissioner who was kind of upfront about it, not upfront, but less reticent with his language was Shane Jackson, a Democrat, who basically said after he was one who was trying to asking Caldwell about refinancing and that sort of thing, and finally he just said, well, basically what the deal is the only way we're going to get out of this is raising taxes.
And as we have said here many times, Knox County has not raised its property tax rate since the Bill Clinton administration. 1999 was the last county property tax increase, and it was a pretty big increase, and it raised the county tax rate to, I think it was like $3.23 or something like that per $100 assessed. If you have been keeping track, you know that the county property tax rate is now $1.55 per $100 assessed, because the way that property tax works, every time there's a countywide reassessment, if the overall property value goes up, then the tax rate has to come down, because the county cannot, quote unquote, make money just through having higher appraisals. And so we've had a sequence of county mayors who have treated that as sort of a bonus, because it's like, oh, every time we get a reappraisal, we get to go out there and tell people your tax rate is coming down. Mm-hmm. But the result of that, and we've done stories about this in the past, kind of showing how some of the math works, the result is that property taxes do not keep pace with inflation. They're just like sort of systematically designed so that they don't keep pace with inflation. And so it's not just that the county hasn't raised taxes in the last 25, 26 years. It's that the actual value of the taxes that they are receiving has declined. They are actually losing money.
Yeah, a dollar,
inflation-adjusted dollar.
Yeah, $1 in 1999, when the last time the property taxes were raised. The equivalent now is almost $2, $1.92, I believe it is. They add that number. The meeting is $1.92, 94, somewhere around in there. So it's almost $2. So it's inflation has taken a huge chunk out of it, and just the rate itself is of 95 counties in the state of Tennessee, Knox County is the third largest. The property tax rate is the 76th highest. So of the big counties, of the 10 largest counties, Knox County ranks 8th. So basically, now of course this is going to flavor the elections in 2026. It's interesting, on the finance committee, you had 2 of the 3 candidates for the Republican in the Republican primary who've announced. Could have more in the future, who knows? But 2 of the 3 candidates are on that committee. Jay, as we mentioned earlier, and Kim Frazier. Both of them. Frazier also. She didn't kind of go to the extent Larson did, saying, "Oh, we've got to change our funding model," or Jackson, we got to raise taxes. But she did acknowledge the situation very, very strongly, about the situation the county is in, with the greater demand for services, the higher debt service, and the low, relatively speaking, tax revenues. The other candidate is Betsy Henderson, who is not on county commission. She is on the school board, was a former school board chair, understands that 2/3 of the county's money goes to the schools, and that's non-negotiable. It has to. She is running very forcefully on the no tax increase line. She is dead set against raising taxes. She even came out during gave a press conference during the city's campaign to get a referendum passed to raise the sales tax in the city, and came out against that. She's against, she says she's against property taxes. When this conversation came out, she on social media saying no.
Yeah, she came out very strongly again this week, obviously responding to this discussion at County Commission. And, I think correctly reading the tea leaves that some of the other candidates running are maybe going to try to leave their options more open in terms of considering future revenues, because she's saying that politically, it's true that saying, promising no new taxes is often politically a safer bet than not promising no new taxes. But it'll be interesting as we get into that campaign, because it's one thing to go and post things on social media. As Henderson gets into situations where she has to actually answer questions, it'll be interesting to see what thoughts she has about how the county can meet these obligations, because, the county doesn't even provide that many services to start with. You mentioned libraries, there's parks, there's the health department. The county is not absent the schools and the sheriff's office, and one can only assume that nobody, especially no Republican running, is going to be talking about making big cuts to the sheriff's office. That doesn't leave very much in that county budget. And so I think it would be interesting to hear where you think, which libraries are you talking about closing or cutting, or which parks aren't going to get, what part of the county are you not going to invest in?
Well, I think
because they're already not investing very much anywhere.
To be fair, from her social media statements, at least, is that she's going to find that waste and whatever to get rid of. And that's what, if the conversation is, are the libraries waste? That's one thing. If that's her stance on it, that's fine. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but where is this waste? What is it? Because I would like to know that, because if this waste is real, then that's a conversation to have. But until she's willing to come out and give us these things, because as you guys mentioned, she has been in this system for years now and on school board, she should have a pretty good understanding, or the ability to get the understanding she needs to point these things out to us. So I'd like to see those as a voter in this conversation.
Well, and also it's just, like back when Glenn Jacobs ran for county mayor, coming off of 8 years of Tim Burchett as county mayor, who also, of course, didn't raise taxes, he was kind of beating that drum too. Like we're going to look at waste and like, in fact, Jacobs has not cut very much from the county budget because he got in there and found that Tim Burchett hadn't left him much to cut. If anybody coming into office after 8 years of Glenn Jacobs thinks that Jacobs, who is extremely anti-tax himself, and sort of anti-government in a libertarian way, that Glenn Jacobs is leaving you a lot of waste in the county budget that you're going to come in and be able to find and cut, I'll just say good luck.
Yeah, and if you think Glenn Jacobs is going to rescue you by proposing a property tax increase in his last year, which is next year, you got another thing coming, because he's not. And those cash reserves for debt service that mentioned earlier in the segment, there's still plenty in there right now for Jacobs to be able to use that to make the debt service payments in the next fiscal year. In other words, he's going to slide out of here right before.
After that, it's somebody else's problem.
Right before it hits the fan, he's going to be out of here, and and it will be up to the next mayor to grapple with. I mean, one of the and it's always funny. One of the phrases that they use to kind of speak around raising taxes, and he'll actually use the old we're going to have some tough choices to make. When a politician tells you they've got tough choices to make, that means we need to raise taxes. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to propose raising the taxes. Doesn't mean anything, but they're acknowledging that you need to raise taxes when they say we have tough choices to make. So, anyway, this will be a topic not only in the campaign but in county government in general moving forward over the next several years. So, steel yourself for that. The one area when we're talking about county spending and where the county has a great need is with the Juvenile Service Center, which we've talked about quite a bit. It's the beleaguered Juvenile Service Center, the longtime superintendent and former and person that the facility is named after, Richard Bean, was resigned under pressure this past summer because he tried to fire a whistleblower, and it turns out and he had been basically that was his little fiefdom. There was no real oversight. County government left him alone to run the facility because he had run it for 50 years. And when he left, they went in and took a look at it, and holy smokes, it was kind of like going into your uncle's house and finding out that he was a hoarder. It was a real there are problems there. They got the University of Tennessee's County Technical Assistance Service to do a study of the facility. We talked about that last time, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, about all of the woes there, and it covers everything from safety and security to food service to medical care to the facility itself to staffing to pay to all kinds of things that were wrong with it. So what the county's original plan has been to they created an oversight board that Jay is chair of as well, to oversee the detention facility or not detention. It's the juvenile services facility where they do keep detainees, but oversee that and to hire an interim superintendent till the end of the year, when the Knox County Sheriff's Office would take over the management of the facility. That has changed. They are asking County Commission to postpone the turnover date by 6 months to July 1st, which coincides with the fiscal year change, and because they need to fix more of the problems before the sheriff's office can take over. The whole plan was kind of shaken up last weekend when Brian Bivens, who had a former head of corrections for the sheriff's office, who came out of retirement to be the interim superintendent, suddenly resigned. And said, basically, I didn't get the support that I needed from the county on this. And it was kind of interesting because the last month when the board met and they heard from CTAS about all these problems, they also talked about the steps that Bivens had been taking to correct some of those problems. And there was universal praise for the job that he was doing. There was no public discontent with what he was doing. They all acknowledged that it's a pretty daunting problem. I mean, some of the problems are kind of astounding to the layperson and are expensive to correct. They have a video surveillance system that doesn't cover much of the facility, so there are blind spots everywhere. So much so they need 32 new cameras in addition to what they already have, and basically they're going to have to get a whole new system. There's not a perimeter fence around the property, so anybody can walk up to the recreation yards, and if they were so inclined and could are out of eyesight from the corrections officers there, could slip contraband through the fence. There, it's there's just a lot of safety issues. They weren't using the dining room there; they were feeding kids in their cells. There's not a dietitian or doing the menus. There's only a nurse there during the daytime hours. During the week, there's not really any healthcare available nights and weekends. There are all kinds of problems. Oh, the payroll system was nuts. One of the they were on their own payroll system. They weren't even on the county payroll system. And when the county went in, the Human Resources Division went in. Director Stephanie Candler said that there weren't good records. Employees didn't know how much sick leave and vacation time they had accumulated, and there weren't records indicating that. A lot of the employee records were handwritten. They used little acronyms and abbreviations that no one knew what they meant, other than the person who actually wrote them down, and who knows who did that. They did go in and calculate that there was almost $626,000 of sick leave and vacation pay that employees have accumulated and not used. It's not budgeted for anymore. And they've actually spent about $120,000 since July 1st on vacation pay and sick pay that people have accumulated. And one of the issues on that was under Bean's administration, when someone was sick and they didn't come in for a day or two, they were just put down as working, and their sick pay wasn't, they didn't get that reduced, so they still have the sick pay, and even though they weren't there and didn't work and were paid. So there was all kinds of things like that.
Well, I mean, the big picture is that Bean had been running this since 1972, when it opened, and it sounds like the facility was still kind of run like a 1970s administration.
CTAS said it was frozen in time.
Yeah,
that was one of the phrases that report used. And there was no, part of it was, he and his wife, late wife Lillian, ran what is commonly referred to as the Bean Machine, a very political network that was very powerful in its heyday in the second half of the 20th century, in the first part of this one. And a lot of people who benefited from the Bean Machine are still employed in county government. It's a very and people are very loyal to Bean. He did not get the scrutiny that a lot of other people would have gotten. There was an oversight board, quote unquote, that was made up of his pals and the people in the Bean Machine. So it was more of a tail wagging the dog thing. Richard Bean ran the facility with no oversight. Like I said, even their payroll was not part of the Knox County payroll system.
Well, and it sounds like he also kind of kept his head down budget-wise. He was not coming to county commission every year asking for more and more money.
No.
He was running this up. He was running an extremely underfunded, it looks like, operation, and that also kind of kept him out of the crosshairs of county commission.
Right. And so, I mean, the budget's about $5 million. It hasn't really changed a whole lot over the years, so or at least recently. The one thing is, all of these problems that CTAS identified, those are the problems that Bivens was hired to help start to solve. And he has made some headway on addressing some of those problems. Obviously, the scope and scale of those problems are much greater than you can do anything in the last, in a couple of months. I think he came on July 1st, which was the month before Bean officially left. So July, August, September, October, so he's 4 months essentially that he's been on the job. And he had made some headway. They've gotten some help from the health department on some of the issues with medical care. I mean, one of the things that's come up in this is virtually every kid who is detained in the facility is on some type of medication. Virtually every kid, if not every kid, is diagnosed with some sort of mental health
learning disorder, mental health disorder.
Yeah, something like that. And they don't have anybody on nights and weekends who's a medical professional who is on board, and the health department's helped out quite a bit on some of that. But that meant sending over someone that worked for the health department and taking away from their duties they had. And getting back to the budget discussion, that's what you end up doing is you take somebody from one department that is already needed there and fill in the gap, plug the dike, put their finger in the dike there over here, and that springs a leak over there. So anyway, the one thing Bivens again said in his statement that he issued after he resigned, that the county did not give him the support that he needed to do this. Now, one thing is he was only supposed to work through the end of the year, and I think that probably he made great strides. It could make a lot of improvements there without just by changing some processes and implementing some things that aren't really expensive. But they decided to extend it to July 1st. That meant he had basically a whole year. And
there's this CTAS report that made clear how great the needs really are.
Great the needs are. And as Larson J pointed out at the meeting, there's no money. They're going to have to do it within the budget they have. They're not going to go to county commission and ask for additional funds. Of course, where would they come from? Don't know. But there are reserves. The county does have reserves, but this is stuff that's going to cost a lot of money. In fact, one of the during their meeting on Thursday, Corey Dower, Captain Corey Dower, who is basically going to be the interim superintendent moving forward. He's been overseeing the corrections side of the facility. They asked him what his greatest needs were. He said one was medical care, and specifically, a medical professional on nights and weekends. That costs money.
Yep.
He's one of the issues that they had is when Bean ran the place, there was Bean in charge and everybody else. There was no real kind of structure or
there was no middle management.
No middle management. There were no shift supervisors. So I mean, they had officers, but they didn't have, those officers did not have a shift supervisor, so they need supervisors to be there, whether they promote from within or get somebody from, it doesn't matter. But supervisors get paid more than officers do. That would cost money. If you're talking, 3 shifts, full time, it's, we're talking at least 5 employees, 5 supervisors right there, 5 or 6. And so, at least, because these facilities have unique, staffing needs, because they are not only a detention facility, but they're also for juveniles. So there's education that comes in. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on there, transporting to and from the courtroom, intake, discharge, those kinds of things. There's a lot going on. And so there's that. So that's the second thing. The third thing he said were the capital issues. And by capital issues, we're talking about the things that you have to borrow money for, things like the perimeter fence, the camera system. They need a whole new computer system. Basically, they do have an antiquated computer system that none of the employees know how to use. I mean, this is the type of thing that was going on there, that was, those are the types of things that Bivens pointed to, saying, he's not going to get that support. They're not going to provide him with we weren't going to provide him with any more funding to address those issues, at least for this fiscal year. So, it's kind of setting them up for failure, they're going to be able to make a certain amount of improvement, but they're going to hit a wall because there's no extra money, and everything that they really, really need, the most acute needs, cost money.
And it's important to just kind of keep central to the whole discussion. This is a juvenile services center. The people who are there, the population that they are serving, are kids. Now, some of them are accused of crimes of various kind, including sometimes maybe even, violent crimes, assault and so forth. So there is a sort of criminal detention side of it, but first of all, those are still kids, often from, difficult backgrounds with their own sort of sad stories. And then there's other kids who are there just because they need through the Department of Children's Services, just because they need a place to put kids who have been removed from various kinds of situations. Yeah. And so those are some of the people in the Juvenile Services Center are some of the most vulnerable people that Knox County serves throughout any of its agencies or services. Right. And they are in a center that has been, just obviously neglected in every conceivable way for years.
Yeah. It's the wonder is that more severe things haven't come to light. There has been scrutiny from the media on, and the Department of Children's Services on, the center over the years, Bean's last years. And one of the things that he would do was put kids in basically solitary confinement. They at a higher rate than any other facility in the state of Tennessee, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that Dwight Vandevate, who is Mayor Jacobs' chief of staff, was at the meeting as well. He's not on the oversight committee, but he was there giving a briefing to them about a lot of these things. And he maintained that things are better for the kids. He talked about he said they're safe. He said that they're getting fed 3 meals a day. They have expanded visitation hours from their families so that they that's helped them as they're in there. There are some things, they with the health department's help, they have improved somewhat the health delivery. Knox County Schools, actually, there's a school there too, so it's a school there and there, and so all in all, they claim that the kids are being well taken care of. Now, the one of the things they're doing is they're trying to limit the number of kids. This is a regional facility. They're trying to limit the number of juveniles who are coming from other counties. The DCS detainees they'll keep. They only have. This is a 120 bed facility, and they only have a couple of dozen detainees at any one time, and a lot of those rotate in. And a lot of these kids, of course, let's say they get arrested at 9:00 at night. They get processed in. They spend the night. They go the next morning to court for their preliminary hearing. They get released and go back home. So a lot of them are only there overnight. But there are quite a few who are also there. If they're being detained for a long period of time, they can be there for a month or longer. So it's a difficult population to serve, and that is, like you said, this is one of the most vulnerable populations in all of Knox County, and I think that there is a real awareness of that, but as Bivens pointed out, there needs to be support, and support equals dollars, and that's something the county doesn't
prayers
have.
Aren't going to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of dollars and need, City Council last week voted to approve Mayor Indy Kincannon's proposal to provide $100,000 to food banks in the area that are overwhelmed with with demand from people who receive the SNAP benefits from the federal government, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. A lot of people still refer to them as food stamps. The city is going to provide $100,000 to the United Way. The United Way has donors have lined up to provide another $100,000. So that's $200,000. The United Way is going to distribute to food pantries in the area. They heard from some operators of food pantries at their meeting. Rob Patrick, who is the executive director of the Knoxville Academy of Medicine Foundation, and they have a food pantry. And they the first week of November, when the SNAP benefits technically ran out because of the government shutdown, they saw a 62% increase in demand. The Wesley House also had a similar. Their executive director was there, also reported a similar increase. This is a lot of these people are first timers who haven't used a food pantry before. Some of them are people who use them regularly, but are going to have to rely on them for more food because the SNAP benefits, had run out. This was something that, of course, was not controversial. But it's also telling too that the city, which, despite the fact that there was a push for a sales tax increase, that was voted down earlier this month, is in the financial shape where they can grab $100,000 and donate to this on an emergency basis. The SNAP benefits. This is, it's all well and good that they're giving $200,000 between the city and the United Way to these food banks, but one of the sobering figures that I ran across in reporting this is that the various places will give you various numbers on the average SNAP benefit in Tennessee. The one that was kind of in the middle of the pack that I used said they were using USDA data. $203 a month per recipient is the average SNAP benefit in Tennessee, and there are almost 35,000 SNAP recipients in Knox County alone. So the population of Knox County is about 500,000. 35 million or thousand, excuse me, are SNAP recipients. That's $7 million in the local economy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. $100,000 is nice, but
a month.
Yeah,
$7 million a month in the local economy. All all of it, because of the restrictions on SNAP benefits, goes to area grocery stores and supermarkets and convenience stores and wherever you can buy food that you're allowed to buy. Farmers markets. But that's $7 million.
Yeah.
And this is money that every dime of it goes to food, not the budget is $7 million and only $5 million goes to it's all $7 million.
Pretty much all of it is spent every
all
month.
of it is spent every month. So it's a huge issue, and yes, the Congress voted to end the shutdown. Presumably, SNAP benefit. While they were doing all that, the Trump administration kept resisting court orders to provide those SNAP benefits. But the government is back, in operation now. But there's a delay in these SNAP benefits. A lot of the, most of the SNAP recipients are not going to get their benefits for November. It's just not going to happen. And so this need is very acute, is ongoing, and will be going on for weeks. And and like I said, it was a drop in the bucket, but it was one of those things where local government did try to step in and do what it could do to help. And I'm sure that the food banks are that private citizens are stepping up as well for making donations to these food banks. Also in city news, City Council on Tuesday, when they approved the SNAP benefits, also approved on first reading a controversial provision that would allow them to allow you to subdivide duplexes in residential areas in the city. Now, under the current, you can have duplexes just about any, in any zone in the city. Although the low density zones, you have to, it's a special use that you have to get approved. But these are typically duplexes that are duplexes that are owned by one person or entity. Typically they're rented, the two units are rented out. It's all one, one parcel, one building, one owner. This would allow you to subdivide the building itself, the duplex itself, along the common wall, what they call the party wall. Makes it sound fun to live there. But along the party wall, and that extend that line to the property line, and basically create two small lots out of one. And different owners can own different sides of the duplex. Now, a lot of other cities do that. I had friends in New Orleans who lived in one, where they owned half of it and other people owned the other half. But you're functionally creating a smaller lot than would otherwise be allowed by city zoning, right? Right. You functionally create two smaller lots instead of one. And typically those smaller lots would be too small for the neighborhood. But the one thing that is different about that is you've got two smaller lots, but you're not going to have two houses. You have one house. You still have one. I mean, it looks no different from the street.
Right. And it has the same setbacks and everything.
Same setbacks and everything. Now, one thing that would be different, and this is one of the sticking points that a lot of the residents who spoke, and there were residents who spoke in opposition to this on Tuesday of last week, is each unit gets a driveway. So that's two curb cuts instead of one on the driveway, and two places where vehicles go in and out. We're talking about residential streets. There's a lot of concern about that. Now, two curb cuts are already allowed in these areas. That's why you can go to neighborhoods and see one of those semicircular driveways. Those are allowed, but in this instance, you would have two separate driveways for the duplex, and so there's a lot of concern about that, and that's where the big sticking point is. That and other design guidelines as well. There's a duplex, a regular duplex in West Hills, for example, where they have a 2-car garage in the front of the house. One of those monstrosities of architecture where they, you look at the house and you see a garage and maybe a second story above it with a window, and that's all you see from the street. It's a crime against architecture, but nonetheless, it's one of those things that happens, and that those arguments kind of resonated with a lot of the city council members, because the whole idea of these zoning ordinances, or not the whole idea, but part of the idea is you want neighborhoods not necessarily to be uniform, but to look more or less. So you don't want
standardization.
Yeah, well, you don't want anything to stick out like a sore thumb. There's a range of things for the most part in the city anyway. But you don't want anything to really. That's why you don't want a 4-story building, even if it's a single family 4-story building in most neighborhoods, because most neighborhoods have 1 or 2-story buildings. So I mean that's part of it. Anyway, they did ask the planning commission about planning commission or Knox County Planning Executive Director, the staff executive director, Amy Brooks, to kind of look at what can we do about design guidelines to prevent those kinds of things, and to address the driveway issue, to address those kinds of things. But there was enough opposition that it was one of the few times that you had something where the bare minimum 5 votes was as much as they could muster to pass this on first reading. Now it's an ordinance, so there will be 2 readings. Another reading, 2 weeks. Well, that'll be 1 week from now. But the vote was 5-3. There was 1 abstention. So there was quite a bit of division. So you're dividing duplexes and dividing the council, and that's what happened. So we'll see if there'll be any tweaks to this for second reading. Can't be too, they can't make too many changes to it, but they'll also should have some clarity on the design guidelines and what will be allowed to actually be built on these if they pass it. It's one of the things that of course we've been talking about the more of the negative things. One of the positive things that proponents have brought out is this is a way to increase options for home ownership.
Right.
Because you can
own a tiny little
piece of property.
You
can own a 500 square foot unit, and it's similar. It's similar to a condo, and you can do this with an existing duplex if you have a condo agreement. Because then you have individual ownership of the units within the condo frame, but you only have, the condo association would be the overall owner. You've got, with only two people, it's kind of unwieldy, and nobody really does that.
Right.
So
easier to just split it in half.
Right. And so we'll see how that goes. Not this week, but next week when it comes back up for second reading. A couple of kind of nature and environmental things to round out the this episode. The Seven Islands State Birding Park in East Knox County, over near Kodak, is a very popular place to go to watch birds, to hike, to get away. Nice.
It's great. Just one of the prettiest places in Knox County.
Absolutely, it's beautiful. It's on the French Broad River, and it is a beautiful location. It's been a state park for a little over a decade now, and before that, it was a county park managed by Legacy Parks Foundation. But it is a gem of a park. But it is going to be kind of transformed in a way. Railroad magnate Pete Clausen. I love using that word now, actually, because I don't think he qualifies as a robber baron or anything. But
right. Yes.
But anyway, Pete Clausen is donating 90 acres of riverfront property to the park on the south side of the French Broad River, which basically is South Knox County. It's at the end of this property is at the end of Kimberlin Heights Road, in South Knox County, and the park already owns a small parcel there, but this greatly expands its presence in South Knox County, and the Legacy Parks Foundation got a state grant, $7.7 million, to build a pedestrian bridge from what's called Newman's Island to the South Bank. One of the things is Newman's Island is the biggest of the largest of the seven islands the park is named after. It is already part of the park.
And there's a bridge to from the north side of
there is already a pedestrian bridge there. This will be a second pedestrian bridge. Now, this isn't an extension of the same bridge. It's a pretty wide island for East Tennessee. A little bit different location on the island. There will be a bridge that they will build to the south bank of the river, but that will enable you to walk from and hike from South Knox County over to Newman's Island, over to East Knox County in the main part of the park. It will increase access for people who are from South Knox County. Obviously, a lot easier to get to the main part of the park, and also Blount County, Sevier County, anyone down there who wants to come there. It is a very popular place, as the name implies, for bird watching. More than 220 species of birds hang out there, and so this is a major expansion and a major development for this park. Now, one thing is the 90 acres on the south side of the river. There are a couple of houses on there. I don't know what the state is going to do with those yet. They haven't said anything, but they have said that they're not going to really develop lots of stuff on this bank. It's mostly going to be habitat. They are going to put in walking trails on the south bank, but it's mostly what's not on the what is not developed is the trail outside the trail footprint. It's just going to be, they're going to maintain habitat, and which is, of course, the whole reason for the park to exist. So anyway, that donation of land, and one other thing too, Legacy Parks had acquired the other islands of 7 islands, and they're donating those islands to the park as well. So now all of the islands associated with 7 islands are going to be part of the Seven Islands Park, plus the South Bank property and the existing property. So with, between Pete Lawson and Legacy Parks Foundation, the park is in the state of Tennessee with a grant. It's going to be a really a significant transformation for the park. And if you have never been to that park, wholeheartedly recommend going. There are plenty of trails. They're easy trails. It's not like you're hiking up Mount Lacan or anything. It's just nice, nice trail system. Beautiful place.
Yeah, and
peaceful.
even this time of year, the trees are bare and everything, and obviously it's not as green as it is in the summer, but it tends to be less crowded and less populated in the fall and winter. I've been there, and it's still a really really pretty place it's just a great little getaway from the rest of the world.
Yeah, and it's even when in the summer months, it's not overrun. I mean, it's not. I mean, you go there and there are people there. The times I've been, they're always. I've never been there when I've been there completely by myself, but they're just a handful of people. So if you do want solitude, it's very easy to find.
Yep.
And
it'll be even easier with this.
It'll be even easier with the extra 90 acres on the south waterfront. So, not south waterfront, it's a different place. The south shore of the French Broad there. So, there's that. In other more kind of environmental news, the regional officials have put out their first regional climate action plan as a 9-county plan centered in Knoxville, driven by the city of Knoxville, but encompasses 9 counties. They issued this or announced it that they had finished it on Thursday at an event at the Emporium. I was there, Wednesday. I was there and got a briefing on it. Took a look at it. Now we're going to take a more in-depth look at this, hopefully this week. But just the bare bones from the launch of it is there are basically 6 sectors that it's going to address: buildings, transportation, energy, waste, natural and working lands, and then agriculture. And there are different action plans within each of those categories. The goal is to reduce greenhouse emissions by 40% by 2035 and 75% by 2050 relative to 2022 emissions figures. And the way that this is a little bit of a technical thing in the report, but which is one reason I couldn't turn around overnight, because it is a long and sometimes technical report. But if the counties and cities involved in this take the steps, and individuals, there are things for individuals to do, take the steps to that are outlined in the report, then those goals are achievable. These aren't, they have it kind of laid out that, yes, if you do this much, it should improve the emissions by this much. You do that, should improve it by that much. You do it all, it will be able to meet those goals. Now, of course, the city has more ambitious goals itself, but this doesn't supersede those or anything. But but it is one, is a regional framework. There are, of course, the big issue there for a lot is money. For instance, one of the recommendations is that public vehicle fleets, cities and counties, convert those to electric vehicles. Well, that costs money, and there's that. A lot of these things will cost money that would come from the federal government, but the federal government in the current administration is not too keen on clean energy or alternative energy sources. One thing that this action plan does is it does promote, encourage the nuclear industry as well. Of course, TVA is building the modular reactor in Oak Ridge, and which will be the first nuclear unit to come online in recent years. Well, Watts Bar Unit 2 came on a few years ago, but and Tennessee now gets almost half its energy from nuclear power. So it's really, as they reduce, the use of coal. But anyway, the pitch was interesting because they also, Mayor Kincannon was there. She was, as I said, the city of Knoxville got the grant to pay for this study. They and was kind of the driving force behind it. But she also emphasized the other benefits for this. One of them is economic, because there are jobs associated with green industries. They identified 49 occupations where could focus some workforce development resources to. Talked about the benefits of your health, the benefits of lower energy costs. One of the things is a lot of the steps here are kind of the old tried and true ones anyway. Weatherization of homes. Well, it's just you kind of roll your eyes and say, oh yeah, they always say weatherization. Well, weatherization does two things. It reduces the amount of energy used, which reduces your electric bill or your gas bill. And they want you
which helps the family budget.
That helps the family budget. It's so they're really kind of pushing a lot of that, as well as because quite frankly, just the nature of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, they're almost abstract. I mean, we are, they had, especially up until recent years, when we really started to see the layperson has been able to see the impacts, like the more frequent and more violent storms. Helene, for example, is one that was mentioned during this. Sea level rise, those kinds of things. We're starting to see that now. But up till now, and for most people's lives, it's kind of been an abstract concept. But saving money on your electric bill is not abstract. That is very concrete, and so they're really pushing that. There are also a lot of things that they're kind of pushing for your that individuals can do. Tree planting, for one. They're wanting to increase the tree canopy. Knoxville, for example, a tree canopy is about 38% of the land of the city. They want to increase that to 40%, which doesn't sound like much, but it's quite a bit of large number of trees. And they're trying to encourage, they can plant trees on public rights of way. They can plant trees on public property. But they're also really trying to encourage people to plant trees in their own property. And in fact, one of the this was an interesting initiative. You probably had known about it. I did not know about it until this past week, when it was given an Orchid Award by Keep Knoxville Beautiful, and that's called Re-Oak Oakwood Lincoln Park. And it is an initiative in the Oakwood Lincoln Park neighborhood where they're trying to reintroduce the oak trees that called Oakwood, But
the namesake.
Yeah, so it is an effort to plant oak trees, and it kind of in Oakwood Lincoln Park would increase the tree canopy there, that sort of thing. Those are the types of efforts that they are kind of pushing in this plan as well. Like I said, we'll be taking a more in-depth look at that plan this week.
And I think one thing just to mention there, if people are curious, because we're getting into the colder part of the year now, where a lot of times you start to hear people say, well, so much for global warming, it's cold out. 2025, we do have a president in the White House now who is vehement that climate change is a, quote, hoax. 2025 is on track to be either the second or third hottest year on record since 1850, right behind 2024, which is the hottest so far. And 2025 is kind of vying for the next 6 weeks or so with 2023 for which is going to be the second and third hottest years on record, all of which means that the 3 hottest years globally on record since we started keeping these records in 1850 have been the last 3 years. So if anybody, the climate hasn't gotten the memo that this is a hoax.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, we had a couple of cold days last week. In fact, one was cold enough to where they opened up a warming center for people who are homeless. People are always tempted. You always hear, "Oh, well, so much for global warming. Look, it's cold in November." Well, it's also in the 60s later, in the week in November, which is unusually warm.
Yeah.
So it's, we had a day of unusually cold weather, or a couple of days of unusually cold weather in last week, but we're also having days of unusually warm, more days of unusually warm weather.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't forget, this year also includes last January when we had a record-setting freeze that went on for like 10 days. And so, overall global warming does not mean that you won't have those, spikes. In fact, it apparently means, because speaking of things we've learned about polar vortexes.
Yeah.
Something we didn't used to talk about much, but so we can kind of have the worst of all possible worlds where things are getting warmer with various drastic and dramatic effects, and also as part of that we get these periods of severe cold.
Yeah. And I was talking with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they were mentioned the hoax of global warming. They were someone who ascribes to that theory, and and that steps the government, that local governments have taken, like this step, were silly. And I just looked at them and said, the science doesn't really care. I mean, you can say it's a hoax all you want. You can say we shouldn't do anything about it all you want, but it's going to do what it does because it's science. It's not, you put more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and you're going to get more of a greenhouse effect. Sorry, that's the way it is. Anyway, like I said, we're going to take a more in-depth look at that one day this week. Also, coming up this week, we have County Commission is meeting Monday at 5 o'clock in the main assembly room of the City County building, where they will, among other things, consider that extension of the transition period for the juvenile detention facility. KUB meets. We're talking about energy. KUB meets. Their board meets at noon on Thursday in the Millers building. Knoxville Transportation Authority, talking about electric fleets nowadays. They're meeting at 3 o'clock Thursday in the small assembly room of the City County building. One thing, their agenda is not out yet, but my understanding is they're going to discuss some adjustments to routes. So people who are interested in people who rely on CAT for transportation might want to pay attention to that meeting. Anyway, those are all things that are happening this week that we know about. This is the news business. There is always stuff we don't know about that will happen, and we'll be here to cover all of those things as well. And, that is just about it for this week. I want to thank Lord Seth, who was uncharacteristically quiet almost for most of the show, for his engineering.
No, I feel like I just got to talk for a little bit and make some noise and get myself again. Balls by 50.
Thanks for your engineering prowess, if not for your prognostication on sports. And Will Wright provided our music. We appreciate that. Jesse, always great to talk with you. We don't get to talk. We don't get to talk as much anymore, but it's always good. Glad you were here, and we'll keep things going with Headlights, the podcast of.
That's right. Check it out, theprogressivesouth.org.
There you go. You got to get that plug in there.
I do.
And we'll be at CompassKnox.com, and we'll also be right here next week for another installment of Compass Points. See you then.
CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.